Okay, guys, today we welcome Beth Ann Nichols, who has been with Golfweek since 2002, and today is a senior writer for The Outlet. Thank you for being here, Beth.
Thank you for having me.
So we are going to do some quick nine with Beth Ann. The first one is, what is a snack that you have to have when playing golf?
So this is more of a treat. It's my go-to. I'm playing an awesome course, or I need a pick-me-up, and that's the cold Snickers.
Ooh, we had a lot of those this week at the U.S. Open.
It's something about it coming out of the cooler too. It makes it just even better.
Nice and crunchy. What is part of your daily routine that you just can't go without?
So I go for a walk every day, sometimes twice a day. I listen. Sometimes I make phone calls. I listen to podcasts, and sometimes I just listen to nothing and brainstorm and problem solve, and then sometimes my husband comes along. So, but that's important.
So clearing, yeah. What is your favorite social media channel?
Twitter is what I'm on the most, and it's fun for me to take readers, followers inside the ropes at events with me. I feel like, and also when a big event's going on and I'm on my couch, I really like following the broader conversation that everyone's having to see if I'm on the same page as other people, or, I find that fun. But on Facebook, I do love the first day of school pictures from all my friends' kids, and Halloween. Those are my two favorite Facebook days.
That works out nice because it's kind of like your private community of people.
Yes.
What is typically your favorite LPGA tour stop?
So I know you're not gonna be shocked by this, but the Evian, because it's in France and it's on Lake Geneva and it's spectacular. I mean, the views are amazing. It's all the players, everyone stays in the same little area, so you pass people all the time, going to dinner, and they have amazing fireworks shows and parties. I mean, it's the best week of just being splurged and pampered on for everyone.
Right.
It's unlike any other week on tour.
I love it. I need to still get there.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. What was the last book you read?
So I actually had to write it down because for some reason I can't keep it in my head, but it was called A Heart for Freedom.
Okay.
And it's the story of Shai Ling, who was the young woman, the college student who led the protests in Tiananmen Square. And it was a fascinating book. Couldn't put it down. It's an autobiography. I highly recommend it.
Okay. I know I need to start making this list so people can have it. What is the last podcast you listened to?
So I listen to Christine Kane every week. It's a Equip and Empower is the title of the podcast, and it's inspirational, and they're only like 25 minutes, and I'm always inspired and challenged when I finish one.
Yeah. And the last show that you just binge watched, you watched the whole thing?
Whole Dark. Which
okay.
Heard of, but
no.
I recommend it. I like period pieces. It's set right after the American Revolution, and so it's a good show.
All right. Do you prefer the driving range or playing nine?
Playing nine, definitely. Evening nine, preferably.
I like that. And your most memorable moment in covering golf so far?
So that would be the 2007 British Open at the Old Course, the first time the women competed there, the professionals. And I was happy to be staying in the same bed and breakfast as Lorena Ochoa, which was just random. That's and I remember she's leading the tournament. It's like Saturday morning. I'm already at everybody, when you're at a breakfast over in England or Scotland, anywhere in the UK, everybody eats together. There's one table, and if you happen to be coming down at the same time. And so I was there with Catherine Kirk and Chris Tamalis. We all happened to be eating at the same time. And here comes Lorena. And I'm thinking, someone playing the world, leading a major. Does she just get it to go? Because she doesn't really want to talk, what does she do?
Yeah.
She sat down. I mean, I think we just talked. I don't even remember what we talked about. I was just amazed that, that's Lorena though, I mean, she's the same, whether she's, in the lead, behind a microphone, behind a camera, or just sitting down to breakfast. And it'd be like Tiger Woods randomly at your B&B, and he comes in,
And has breakfast with you.
The media and a couple other players, and so that was wild. And the after party was right next door after she won at the doesnt, which is, about a pitching wedge from the first tee at the old course, and an iconic spot. And that was something I'll never forget.
Oh, that's a great one. So talking about your own golf journey, though, I saw you grew up on a municipal course, but went on to play collegiate golf. What was your journey to playing golf like?
So I started in a 50-cent league at my local muni on Mondays. When you got older and you played 18, it was $1.
Okay.
So I started out as like a once a week player as a kid. And then when I got into the 8th grade, 9th grade, I started taking it a little bit more seriously and stopped playing basketball and was just a golfer. And when I look back on that time, if a group of guys hadn't welcomed me into their group, because there weren't any girls at the time. There was a girl that came along, was a little bit younger than me, but pretty much it was just me. If they hadn't welcomed me and let me play with them every day, I don't think I would have stuck with the game, because it was the social aspect that I loved the most. And sure, there were a lot of times I was out grinding and playing by myself, but for the most part, if they hadn't made me feel comfortable and given me that opportunity, I certainly wouldn't have the career that I have today.
That's so nice. Are you still friendly with any of them?
I am.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
They're fantastic. They're they're married and they have kids, and my husband likes them. I was in one of the guys' weddings. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a great group of people, and yeah, I think about that a lot because I'm still in a male dominated industry, as are you, and oftentimes I'm the only female writer in the room, or there's just a handful of us. So anyways.
That's so nice. What a cool, full circle experience.
Indeed.
So in college, you played golf, but did you also study journalism?
So I went in thinking I was going to be in broadcast. I love Dateline. Okay. I thought it'd be really cool to be like a Dateline producer,
sure,
or something like that. But I was, in college you have an academic advisor for athletes, and he put me in this sports writing class and asked me to tutor some of the athletes that he put in there. And so I was like, sure. And so I loved it. Like, I absolutely fell in love with it. I joined the newspaper staff after that. And my senior year, I was sitting in my professor's office, and I remember him saying, I remember this like it was yesterday. He's like, so what do you want to do after you graduate? And I said, I'd love to work for a magazine, a golf magazine, but I feel like you'd have to be 40 before you could get one of those jobs, and he's like, it's funny now because I am 40 now. and he's like, I just saw an entry-level position on a website, on editor and publisher, that I think would fit you. And this was December of 2001. And so I immediately applied. I didn't think they had entry-level positions at magazines. Like, I didn't think that existed. And I was a Golfweek reader. And so I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So I applied, and I interviewed in January, and I got the job, but I didn't graduate until May. So the deal was I'd come in on Fridays and Saturdays and work and help them with their shifts. So I actually didn't play golf the last semester of college because I knew this is what I wanted to do. And my coaches were fabulous about it. And I started full time the week after I graduated, and have been there ever since. So kind of wild.
So when you were playing collegiately, you were not thinking in the back of your mind, like, I'm going to try to go pro?
Oh no, not for a second. No, I had a lot of people on my team that were, way better than me. And I knew that was never, I wasn't at that talent level. But the idea of staying in the industry and working in golf and continuing on, I was actually a USGA boat ride intern.
I saw, that's awesome.
and that was a lot of fun. And so, the idea of being able to marry my two loves and my strength in writing has been just a dream job.
Yeah, I had a similar situation. I didn't play college golf, but I knew I really liked golf. So I was the beat reporter at IU for golf. So yeah, it's nice. It's cool to see stories in which people play and enjoy the game, and they're passionate about it enough that they want to work in it too.
Absolutely. It's it's a blessing.
Definitely. Yes. So moving on now to your career and writing about golf. I mean, you write obviously, and I'm sure this has changed over your tenure, but the format in which you write stories, whether it's opinion, it's human interest, it's like a gamer, you know, it just like it goes across the whole gamut. What are though your favorite types of stories to tell?
So, I mean, I love this game, but I am not your technical person. Like, I'm not going
Okay.
to break down someone's swing.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, I'll let someone else do that and I'll report that back to you. But my favorite thing to do is to tell human interest pieces. I love to talk about people, and I love to share what motivates a player, the story behind the story of the player that you're watching on the screen. And that's definitely my favorite thing. And so many players have inspiring stories and great passions and things that drive them that have nothing to do with golf, that they, you know, that are fascinating and really make people. Every player has something that people can relate to. And I think when you uncover that and you unpack that and you show the full gamut of who this player is, you know, then other people can be like, wow, I can connect with her on that or him on that. And those are my favorite stories.
How has social media changed the way in which you get to tell those stories?
Well, it's changed everything about my job. There's no question about it. You know, I think, well, first of all, you can get stories from social media because you get to see a side of players maybe when they put it out there that gives sparks an idea.
Yeah.
But you know, I think social media enables people who are followers to connect with players on a deeper level. It enables me to show them a different side. You know, the behind the scenes of the photo shoot, and behind the scenes of when I was, you know, at this player's home, or you know, video when I'm allowed to shoot it is a fantastic thing at events. And you know, and it's funny because when I'm writing a story, I can hear the player in my head. I know what their voice sounds like. You know, I know what their laugh sounds like. And it's cool to be able to sometimes be able to just have a short little quick video interview with a player that's not on the microphone or leading, or people, you know, that people would hear from on the golf channel, so that they, you know, they can now have that voice in their head and see that personality, because players are so different off the golf course than they are on. And so being able to do that through social media, you know, Instagram Live, things like that, I think really adds another dimension.
Okay. Yeah. And it's just been so funny to like see how things have changed. Like when I was in school, I only looked to Golfweek because at the time I was an AJGA intern. And so like Golfweek, they were the ones that covered amateur golf on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So like that was all I looked to. And then, you know, looking like 4 years after that, it was, oh, now I'm like stuck to Twitter all the time. So it's funny. But then you're like, gosh, I've had enough of this, just like quick hits, like all the little bits. And I just want to read like a nice story. And so obviously that's when it's good to have those outlets still.
Yes. I mean, storytelling, I mean, hopefully I don't think it'll ever die, because it's, you know, you can only get so much out of a, you know, 250 word blog, or, you know, a tweet, you know, and people still crave depth, even though, you know, it's not what dominates our industry right now. I think there's still a craving for it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I do want to switch gears a little bit into just like golf today. And it can be incredibly confusing, whether it's the rules or it's etiquette. You know, for me, when I'm teaching women during For the Ladies events about etiquette, like something as simple as like, you should stand off to the side, not on the tee box while somebody else is hitting.
Yeah.
Like there's just little things that like you wouldn't even realize, because if you're playing a game typically with someone, like you're right with them and you're doing your thing. But in golf, you're not right on top of somebody when you're playing a game. So
Right.
I think that there's just a lot of like little intricacies, and then that also extends to even like the way that the game is it's governed, and then also with like the tours and associations, how they have their rules. Do you think that, how does that affect golf in your opinion, just like across the board, all these like small intricacies?
Well, sometimes common sense doesn't prevail.
Right.
I mean, I feel like, a lot of times we have so many rules in this game, and a lot of things that, well, we've always done it that way. So, that's just kind of the way it is. And then when there are extenuating circumstances, which is what 2020 has been, the asterisk here,
Right.
you look at it and you say, well, like in the case of Sofia Popov, why can't we make an exception here? And why, if you win a major, you should be in the next one. I mean, that's just kind of the way. And so I think sometimes, golf just can't get out of its own way.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've played since I was 9 years old, but my husband didn't really start taking the game seriously or really playing it until we met. And so in his 30s, he's taking up the game. And so it's been really interesting because things that, like for example, he never wanted to pull the pin out. He didn't. It's like, why do you pull the flagstick? Like, what's the point of that?
Right.
And I'm looking at him like, of course you do. Like, what's wrong with you? And so
Yeah.
when the USGA changed that rule, he's like, I won. He's like so excited. See, I was right. And it's been interesting to look at golf through his lens of a newbie, and what he likes, what he doesn't like, whether it be watching golf on television or or playing it, and so it's been kind of refreshing for me to kind of, I don't know, take a step back and look at it in a different way.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like, common sense does not always prevail, and it can be some of like the most frustrating things in the entire world. You're like banging your head, like, oh my gosh, like why is it like this? So
Right. I know, and that unfortunately dominates the headlines, right? And that's what people, I mean, we love it when we get traffic. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you don't want it to be that people only tune into the women's game, for example, when there's controversy,
right.
or PGA Tour players only weigh in on the women's game when there's a controversy.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
they would weigh in, at other times too. That would be great.
Yeah, no, and that's such a good point. And that's something like we continue to talk about more and more is like, how do we get, like, we know the players are paying attention. We know PGA Tour players are watching because some of them are friends with these women.
Mm-hmm.
So they're paying attention, especially when the weeks don't overlap, and how can we get them to engage in that conversation or just like shout out women who are playing well, especially because so many of them grew up playing with them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're genuinely friends,
Right.
and they know how good they are. I think it's just, in some cases, just a lack of awareness. I don't think they
100%.
realize how much a small thing would go a long way. And I'm hopeful that what Justin Rose did, which was not a small thing, was a big thing. I hope that caught some people's attention, and maybe they'll start looking into what their role is, in this, because I really think at the end of the day, the PGA Tour drives the bus, right? And if they want to make a mixed team event happen, they can make it happen. They can make anything happen. So, so it's the ball's in their court. And wouldn't it be great if sponsors that had PGA Tour tournaments, title sponsors, were in the women's space too? Even if it's not sponsoring a tournament, but logos on players. Having an exhibition. The commercials during the event. I mean, like, it seems like there could be, other sponsorships, other ways to engage in the LPGA audience to really live up to what corporate America is saying now about equality and what their mission statements are.
Yeah. And that would help them fulfill on those. And since you've brought it up, I mean, I would be curious of like, what formats would you like to see in these co-ed type events? Team events are always like really fun and exciting, but I was just wondering what your thoughts were on what a format would be interesting to you.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the JCPenney Classic when I was in high school, and I watched Tiger Woods and Kelly Keeney play together, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And both, their matching outfits, red and black Nike outfits, and I mean, that was I went to high school in the mid 90s. Like, why have we not had that since then? Like,
right. And I do wonder though, like, why?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why this hasn't been a priority for the PGA Tour, because the LPGA certainly wants it. And it comes down to obviously finding the right sponsor. But I gotta think that, if the PGA Tour really made this a mission, that they were going to pitch this, that they could find a partner for that event. I love the Vic Open as well, which is the European Tour and the LPGA, where you have players mixed in, back-to-back groups. They're playing the same golf course. I think that's fantastic. When a family comes out to watch golf and you sit down on one green, and 1 minute you're watching men, the next minute you're watching women. I love that idea. And you can see how they attack the hole differently. There's going to be the college tournament at the Blessings that's coming up here.
Yeah.
We'll have men and women on the course together, and I know it's a little bit different because of COVID, because I believe they're gonna have the whole team playing together.
Okay.
And so it won't be quite as mixed as it would have been. But I look forward to what that tournament's gonna do in the future, because we have that on the AJGA. We have mixed events. And I think, the more you have it, the more it just becomes normalized, right?
Right. Yeah. And Hallie Ledbetter was talking to me about that last week when we spoke at the US Open. She was like, if you don't see it, you can't do it. Like, you can't reflect that. You can't continue to do it. So you have to at least put it out there so that we can continue. Yeah. One that I wanted to bring up, of course, was just when the US Open and Women's Open were back to back. I mean, for me, this was back when I was still at the AJGA, I think. And I was so new to golf, and I wasn't really thinking about women's equality in the game. And just I was so young and trying to figure it all out. And now that I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so pivotal and exciting. And I was wondering if you were there, if you had any experiences with it.
Yeah, I was there for both events, for the men and the women, and the women definitely put on the better show.
Right, definitely.
No offense to Martin Keimer, but it was kind of a blow-away snooze fest, unless you're Martin Keimer's family. But it was Michelle Wie, right? It was the best case scenario for women's golf, and I can't believe that the USGA doesn't already have it on the calendar for another one. I've got to believe that it's going to happen. I think the PGA of America could, if they didn't have their events out till 2050, I feel like they could have one. They've done a tremendous job with KPMG. The women's PGA, they brought it to some fantastic golf courses. I just think the governing bodies, have this incredible opportunity to do it. And hats off to the RNA for taking the Women's British Open, the AIG to Muirfield, and next year back at Carnoustie, and then of course St. Andrews. I mean, that's fantastic. It would help with media as well. If you have media that will stick around when they're the same venue back to back, that otherwise, might not make it to a women's major. So many benefits to it.
Yeah. And we look to events like the US Open tennis, Wimbledon, when they're right side by side, and people are exposed to both genders of the game. And it's that's why it works. That's why they have stars on both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. And the LPGA adage that, you have to see it to believe it is so true. I mean, when people go to an LPGA event in person and they see how the women interact with fans, and they watch their skill in person, I think they have a totally different appreciation for the product than what they see on TV. So, and if you have an LPGA majors at venues that stand on their own as bucket list destinations and places that people want to tune in and see, like Augusta National, then it just takes the women's game to a whole other level.
Yeah, that was what was fun for me when the LPGA came to Inverness. I'm certainly biased as I am a member there. But for me, it was and guys that I'm close to in golf who love golf architecture, they were so excited to just see the course on TV and professional golfers playing on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was a major championship venue for the LPGA at a regular stop, but a wonderful preview for the Solheim Cup next year. And I'd be hard pressed to find anyone that wouldn't say that it's going to be the best Solheim Cup venue to date, you know, for the entire event. So, you know, it just goes back to like Royal Troon, you know, I mean, Popoff, fantastic winner, but people also loved watching her win on a course they're familiar with that has such great history and so much respect.
Yeah. And if that is the secret sauce, like that's okay. Like if it's the secret sauce is like, we have to be playing on like a world renowned golf course, then that's what we should be doing.
Absolutely. Why not? Why not have the best of the best, right?
Yeah, of course. So a place that though I feel like has a lot of affinity toward golf and women's golf is South Korea. And I know you have some experience there. And I just think I don't know much about golf in South Korea other than that, like people are fanatics. But I was wondering are there any specifics about like gender in playing the game there?
Well, I mean, let's just start with the fact that like Sungyeong Park is a rock star. Like women screech when they see her to the point that like it hurts my ears. Like I'm at a Justin Bieber concert or something. Like it is wild. Like I've never seen anything like it than at the International Crown a couple years ago. It was like, holy cow. I mean, I've been to Korea several times, but that was like a whole other level because they were playing and representing Korea. So it was even bigger, you know, they're taking on America. It was a bigger deal. But you know, I mean, this all started with Sayri, obviously, and I say that to say that she wasn't just a female sports star. She was an icon, period. She was a hero for the entire country. And so men fell in love with Sayri as much as women did. And so, it got men out playing golf, obviously getting their daughters involved as well. Yeah. But it was a superstardom that we haven't seen, you know. I mean, we thought Michelle Wie might do that in America, but obviously that in injuries and, you know, and a lot of intense pressure, you know, kind of kept that from happening. But I mean, when you really look at how she created this explosion, not only in South Korea, but in Asia in general, how it's you know, moved its way around. It's pretty fascinating. And I mean, what a game changer she has been. But I mean, winners support winners, right? I mean, South Korean players have dominated the LPGA, and so they have great sponsorships individually. You know, they make a lot of money off the golf course, and they're stars. They're on billboards and mainstream talk shows and in commercials and all the things that you don't see happening here in the United States. So, you know, I mean, like even when Maria Fassi and Jennifer Kupcho go on the Late Show, you know, or they're on the Today Show, you know, I mean, these things generally don't happen.
Right.
So that, I mean, it happened when Michelle Wie won, and I actually went to New York for the big media day, the car wash, the day, you know, right after she won at Pinehurst, and it was incredible, and she was fantastic, and you thought, wow, this is what it could look like, you know, and then it just sort of didn't really go after that, but it was, you know, it was a kind of a glimpse into what is possible, and it's already happening, and it has been happening for a long time in South Korea.
Yeah, I was wondering what like those tangible things were. Like I don't live there, so I wouldn't know that like they're in commercials, they're on like late shows. Like that's the stuff that like sounds like the dream here. So
yeah, they have these amazing fan clubs, and people literally travel all over the world, you know, to go watch them, and it's a community of hardcore supporters. It's fascinating. It really is.
It's wild, and I need to like catch up more on it. But you don't. All we hear about is how much they dominate the sport. We don't realize. Sometimes we hear the stories about how much that means to that country or that group of people, but it's not as often as maybe it should.
Yeah, it was the same with Ai Miyazaki in Japan. You know, I mean, he was, you know, in a lot of mainstream commercials, and you know, she was an absolute, you know, athletic icon. You know, and it's kind of hard for us to wrap our heads around. Right. But I mean, it's like Serena, right? I mean, it's basically like Serena, and women's golf doesn't have a Serena.
Yeah. I speaking of international golf, I listened to your podcast with Randy from Knowing Up, and that was like before the pandemic really hit. So you're like, yeah, we'll be back in March. I was like, oh my gosh, no, we're not.
So much has changed.
Yeah. But you guys at the time were talking a lot about the Olympics and how obviously on an international scale, so many people, like so many women are trying so hard to get on that team. Whereas when I was reading articles when it was first introduced back to the Olympics, when the sport was brought back, the men, it was like very like they were wavering on if they were going to, if they were interested. Why is there such a difference between genders when it comes to the passion for it?
Money?
Yeah.
I mean, just if I'm just being blunt, I mean, I feel like on the women's side, you know, there aren't a lot of women getting rich in the game, right?
Yeah.
And so they're playing for pure passion, love of the game. Yes, they want to make a living, right? But the vast majority of them will go on and do something else when they leave the LPGA. They will have to. And so, you know, FedEx money, you know, doesn't exist on the LPGA, and it's just a different world. And the idea of playing for country is massive, you know. And I mean, it's, you look at what it means to be on that South Korea team even before NB1, you know, and then after NB1, an even bigger deal for them, you know. And I, you know, I just think that at the heart of it, you know, that the idea of representing their country was something that, you know, they couldn't possibly think about turning down. You know, they were gonna, if it meant a more exhausting schedule. I mean, heck, Stacey Lewis got married in the middle of all that. You know, I mean, like, you know, they were gonna make it work. You know, and that it was just a totally different mentality. And I think, you know, the men, it's all about the majors, and that's how they felt like what defined them. And I think women were looking at the bigger picture of what this means for my country, you know. And it's so diverse on the LPGA, and there's so many of the top players, you know, would be the rock star in their country, you know, like, you know, when you look at the Jutanagarns in Thailand and what they mean to Thailand, you know. I mean, we don't have a Serena on the LPGA for America, but there are a lot of Serenas in other countries around the world on the LPGA. And so the idea of not showing up and trying to win a medal for their country was unthinkable.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It's just a completely different mindset, but that's okay. And hopefully they can play in 2021.
Yes.
It'll be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also, you know, want to talk a little bit about of just like how women's golf and women's sports in general are covered. It is kind of a chicken and the egg situation. Like if women's golf is not on the major network for their final round, for example, people aren't going to be able to tune in, and that's why the numbers are low. So, you know, there's just like all these external variables that, you know, could be controlled, but they're kind of not. And I it's tough for me because I feel like I'm close to it, but I have felt like women's golf has more eyeballs on it this summer. And I was just wondering like what your perspective was on, do you see women's golf getting more coverage? Do you see people paying more attention?
I think there was the benefit of golf being the only game in town there for a little while. I wish the LPGA could have gotten out a little bit earlier, like the men did, to take more advantage of that. And it was obviously a big shame that they weren't involved or couldn't find a way to have a charity match, you know, around that time as well. But I would say that, you know, it comes back to our earlier conversation about, you know, investment from the corporate standpoint, and you know, really going out on a limb, shall we say, to see if they can, you know, do some good here, right? Because it really elevates all of golf when women are succeeding, and all of society. I mean, not to overgenerate, make it really is true, you know. And so I think, you know, at the same time, it's up to the LPGA as well to take some ownership of it and think outside the box a little bit more. I don't see a problem with having some events that are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that are different times a week. Some players feel like that's a slap in the face and a step back because they're not, golf is on the weekend, you know. But you know, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the exhibition yesterday.
Right.
I don't know when this will air, but Tiger Woods' exhibition at Paynes Valley, I thought it was fantastic, and that was on a Tuesday, and I realized that's an exhibition, but at the same time, you know, people were excited to have more golf, and I think, you know, I also think that with social media, to our previous conversation, LPGA players could do more to open themselves up, put themselves out there, become more available, because you can't compare yourself to the men and say, well, the men don't have to do this. Why should we have to do this? Because you're behind the men and the gap is ever growing. And the only way to close that gap is to do more and to have the founders like perspective. They're out there back in the day pounding the stakes in the ground. They're the PR team. They did everything. And yes, there are more demands on the modern day player, but if you really want to take it to the next level, you have to sacrifice a little bit more, put yourself out there a little bit more, do more media than you probably want to, you know, make a push to pitch things for, you know, more lifestyle pieces and get out there in the mainstream. You know, I think that's on the LPGA, but I also think that's on the individual players as well. So I think, you know, everybody can take a little bit of ownership in trying to move the needle.
Yeah, there's a few things there. Like the women's soccer team, like they own it. They are taking ownership of being in front of cameras and standing up for what they believe in, and they are very vocal, like, and that's why people pay attention, is because they've put themselves out there in such a big way. And with buying a soccer team, like there's just they do so much that you're like, oh, like this is why we're all paying attention. It's because athletes are leading the conversation.
But it also doesn't have to be about social justice. It could also just be about you showing your personality and you doing more. And you know, I mean, the social media platform, there's so many things you can do for free, you know, that it's like, and nobody really, like during the pandemic, no player really took the bull by the horn and really became a breakout star while they were at home, you know, where they created any must-see content, you know, like, you know, you kind of, that goes back to the outside the box thinking, which Mike Wan has been pretty good at, you know, but I still think that, you know, some players could take it, you know, a little bit further, push the envelope a little bit more.
Yeah. And then additionally, there was something else. Oh, with again, back to the No Laying Up guys, since they do support some LPGA players, one of them was saying, you know, they were talking to one of their players, and that she, you know, they were like, are you upset that you only got an hour of coverage during the AIG Women's Open on NBC? And they were like, no, an hour is more than zero. Like, they were like, you know, because otherwise people, you know, are they going to Golf Channel to find us? No, but they might already be on NBC, and then we're right there, right in front of their faces. So I thought that was like an interesting tidbit. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that would make sense that like they were at least excited to be on the broadcast.
Yeah, because the sad reality is not all their majors are on network, and so you know, or even the Solheim Cup. So you know, it's you know, it's that fine line, you know, like, but they need, and I say that being grateful for what you have, because you're grateful for the sponsors that do step up and do invest, but at the same time, you know, wanting more and trying to get more. And I think that, you know, the network is the key. I mean, golf nuts are already watching the Golf Channel. So getting new fans is what's really going to help the LPGA.
Definitely. Before my last question, I would ask, like, if somebody was kind of new to paying attention to women's golf and trying to, you know, they want to support it and they're going to watch the coverage, what advice would you have for somebody who's kind of like new to watching women's professional golf?
You're going to see a lot of names on the board from different countries, and you know, and if you're new, there aren't any household names because Michelle Wee's on maternity leave. So, you know, it's going to be a lot of new faces. And I would say just have an open mind, because, you know, these players, if you want to Google, I've written about a lot of them, but I mean, you know, Google search while you're watching and try to get a little bit of the backstory and get to know a little bit more about the players, because, you know, I mean, the Women Worth Watching campaign, I mean, it's so true. I mean, they have just as good, if not more compelling stories than the men do. The road is exceptionally hard to get to this level, and the quality of golf, they make it look easy, but it really is something to behold. And so I think just give it a chance.
Love it. And then the last question I ask every interviewee is just, what advice do you have for women who would like to pick up the game?
I love this question because I have a couple things.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot of pro-ams, right? Like a ton of pro-ams. I played in quite a few myself as well. And women, you know, you're a corporate woman, you've been invited to play in the pro-am, and you're thinking everybody is going to be so good. And I'm here to tell you the vast majority of them cannot break 90. Many cannot break 100. Very few are actually good players. So don't think for a second that I'm going to be the worst one out there. I'm going to be the only one that doesn't know what I'm doing. You know, I mean, not at all. Have fun, be relaxed. You know, it's just more about networking. That's the point of the pro-am, right? And so it's not, nobody cares how you're playing. You know, it's have a good time, network. My next thing is for people who are just trying to go to the Muni, you know, just trying to get into it. So for my husband and I, this is what works for us. We have vastly different skill sets when it comes to golf. And and I'm not saying if we're going to play some like high dollar bucket list place, but if we're just going, you know, play the Muni or play a course down the road, we play a scramble a lot. And that might not occur to some people, but it really, if we haven't been to the range in a long time, we have time to go to the range, you know, it just kind of, it makes us a team, first of all. and my husband still, you know, he's still competitive about us doing well in a scramble, which is funny. And I'm just along for the ride, but it really just takes the pressure off of everybody. We're not worrying about a score. We're fast. You know, if Ben wants to drop another one and try it again, it's okay because we're fast, because we're playing a scramble. And it just, you know, I just think it just puts the emphasis on fun and not so much of a competition, right? And a score. And then my last thing, which I got earlier this year from this, from a pro, she was talking about her ladies leagues at her club.
Okay.
And she said, you know, there's so many women, you know, they have family membership, or, you know, their husbands play, but they don't play, and they want to get involved. They sign up for my series. So the first thing that we do before we go to the range or we hit any golf shots is we familiarize ourselves with the club, which sounds kind of silly, but I've played golf my whole life, and I know it can be overwhelming going to a place, a new place, especially a hoity-toity place sometimes, and not really knowing where to go or what to do. So she's like, this is the bag room. This is how the bag drop works. This is how, you know, how early you should be at your tee time. You know, this is how you make a tee time. This is how, you know, the appropriate for tips, you know, the you know, all the little things that you don't really think about when you're maybe not even at your club, but a guest at a club, or, you know, playing somewhere out of your comfort zone that might deter you from wanting to do it, because you show up and you don't even know kind of where to begin, you know? And so I love that. I thought that, you know, when it's just not, you know, it's about etiquette. It's about just sort of how to maneuver your way around and not feel like you've made a wrong move.
Right.
So
I love that.
I thought that was fantastic. So those are my new to the game, and just relax. It's the hardest game in the world, but it's also the most fulfilling.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just got to roll with it.
Definitely. Those are fantastic. I need to do and multiple people have asked me this, like how to like go to a golf course. But like having somebody at a country club though, like doing that as part of like a clinic is like fantastic. It makes so much sense.
I was like a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's really good. You know, and cart etiquette, like she goes over that, you know, like where you can and shouldn't drive your cart, and just like, and you haven't even hit a golf shot yet, but already you feel like you kind of know how to get your way around, you know. We'll worry about hitting the ball later.
I'm adding that to every For the Ladies event. Like it's just I'm taking the idea immediately.
Awesome. I wish I could remember who told it to me to give her credit, but She was great.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, Beth Ann. This was fantastic.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.